Hello, friends. Welcome back to Value Vintage Cards. I have decided to jump on in here with the kind of theme and recurring idea of sharing your top 100. So, I shared a couple of times on other people's videos. My challenge is I'm not a VCP watcher, and a lot of what I collect would be irrelevant. They have very low sales, very low populations. They're extremely scarce and rare items. So in a perfect world, it's impossible to comp. The only way to really know the value would be to sell it. And so I really don't know the value of a lot of what I have. I could be ish. I kind of know what I spent. I know maybe what something similar has gone for. So I have an idea, but I'm not a VCP watcher. I don't believe in those things. Recent comps sometimes are out the window. So what I've decided to do is, you guys know my weird box system. I've got box one. In theory, there should be 95 in there. Right now, there's 93 because I'm waiting on two to come in. So that'll end up being next year pickups. What I've done is I've brought in two that, if they were to fit, would fit. The reason I do 95 is almost every box would have 5 things that can't fit in a box that would fit. So I've decided to just substitute in a couple of those. So you'll actually see a total of, throughout the 100, of 7 like big items, 8 by 10 kind of things. And then, yeah, it works. That's a perfect 100. So because it's 100, I think, time, nobody wants to sit and watch a 100 card video all at one time. So just to make it able to be digested, I split it as 50 and 50. Like I said, I don't rank value. So when I looked at how to split these, my top 100 includes 78 pre-war. I'm going to be very careful and say 22 non-pre-war, because there's one or two issues that might actually fall kind of during war, which is interesting. There's 3 non-baseball, so a little bit of diversity, but not much. And then there's 8, which I thought was really interesting. There's 8 that fall into a Topps, Fleer, Bowman. There's no Donruss in this list. There's no Upper Deck or anything like that. So there's only 8 that fall into those kind of like major card companies that still exist category. Now, that said, one of those is Venezuelan at that. So there's really 7 U.S. issues from those major manufacturers. So it's just kind of interesting. So when I decided to split it, I was going to do, pre-war, not pre-war, but that's 78-22. It doesn't fit well. So what I decided to do is I would split it by year, and I ended up having to go back to 1922 as the cutoff. So this video is going to be the old stuff, and maybe that's how I'll label it. Maybe I'll just call this the old stuff, and the other one the newer stuff. But people that like modern are going to be mad when they start off the video and see 1923 cards there. But it is what it is. It's fun. So that's the introduction. I'm going to get kicking here. I've got 50 1922 and back items to share today. So out of the top 100, it's the old stuff. Let me turn it around and get started. All right, gang, here we go. I do apologize for any odd glares, especially on these super large items. It is just a filming challenge. But to kick it off, we have the M101-1 of Billy Hamilton. Next up, I'm going to keep it in the same type of slab and keeping it in M family, M101-2 of Honus Wagner. Now we're moving into 1909 to 13 range. This is not going to be completely chronological. It's just simply sorting by old. M101-2 of Ty Cobb. And I would guess we'll see him more than one more time. In fact, we'll see him immediately. M101-2 is one I don't think I've even shown on the channel, perhaps. I had this for a little bit. Love this item. This was absolutely a Grail-esque kind of item for me. So, Cobb and Wagner together. M101-2, that was. All right, my only ungraded in this video. I'm going to get a little bit more zoomy here, which hopefully will increase just how wonderful it is to see all of these. T206 Christy Mathewson. This is the one that was my really first big, significant pre-war card gift from my mom. So this one will always be on the list no matter what. I don't care if I had 100 Mickey Mantle rookies, 52 tops, whatever. This would bump one of them. That will always be in my top 100 no matter what. Finishing off the oversized, bring it back out just a little bit. Let's go here. I've always heard it said Dan Brothers. I've heard more people lately saying Dan Bruthers, which is maybe truer to his spelling just a little bit, but this is a cool item. N526. Not showing you all the backs, but that one does have a cool back to it. So that is 1889. Jumping into 1907 to 09 realm. Once again, we have a visit from Ty Cobb. And another player that I collect quite significantly. Another great set from that era. Novelty Cutlery. Mordecai Brown. Really cool image. All right, now we're back to regular size items. I'm going to do this really just by grading company because that's how they're stacked. So these will be pretty close to chronological order, but maybe not perfect. Some of these are issued in ranges. So first up, Allen and Ginter, Mike King Kelly. Next is another newer one. Label is skinned, but the back is blank anyway, so it's fine. For me, that was the most iconic image of Buck Ewing, so when I saw that as an option, I had to jump at it. It's an old judge with mascot. Next up, I know I've got at least one or two folks that know and appreciate this one more than others. The 1895 Mayo cut plug of Kid Nichols. That probably would be a top 10 or 15 in my collection, I would guess for sure. Next up, super cool, Fan Craze, 1906, Mordecai Brown, one of his very earliest issues, and probably the earliest issue that there's more than 10 of, so very happy to have that one. We have the orange borders of Eddie Plank. Tough set, cool image. Eddie Plank. Another tough set. Seems to be particularly tough for Christy Mathewson. That ends up being a little bigger card than folks might guess. But E98 of Christy Mathewson with the orange background to it. Next up was a goal card and one of my absolute favorites of this guy. The M116 of Walter Johnson. Absolutely love that image. That is one of the best Walter Johnsons, in my opinion. Back to Ty Cobb, T206, bat on shoulder. And One Ty Cobb is good, another Ty Cobb is better. Now we have the red background. This one I've had for many, many, many years. Wish the pricing was where it was when I picked that one up. E206, Walter Johnson. Again, that glorious portrait image, just fantastic. 206 does a great job with the background colors as well. It's a great one. Back to my guy, Mordecai Brown. I don't have a whole lot of 1914 Cracker Jacks, but he's one that I have both years of. So the 1914 is definitely a box one kind of thing, even if it's authentic. Most likely trimmed because that thing looks fantastic. So here's a 1915 of Eddie Plank, player that glad to have a couple of him in top 100. Here's one that, based on last night's auction, might have moved up on the list if I were to be doing that kind of stuff. So I don't know. But M101-4, George Sisler. This one has him listed as a first baseman. Next, another one that I think I picked it up for fair, and I think he has just exploded. But the WUNC Big Head. So these are classified either as 1916 to 1920 or 1918 to 20. I actually did have this one put in a slab, which will be in probably the end of my ever-sending to grading rotation. But I think 18 to 20 is a more proper year range. But this set, or maybe Hornsby or whatever, have really taken off, and it seems like that one has some solid value to it. This is one that was new, I think, last year, and absolutely thrilled. Love this thing. So this is a W516-2-2 of Babe Ruth. The reason I like it is it shows him throwing right-handed. The colors are crazy cool. I feel like it's a Batman cartoon. But they list him as a pitcher, and they list the team as Yanks. Those are all things that just get me. Love it. Next one, 1921. So we're getting to kind of year range, the end of where this video covers. Now, Oxford Confectionery, which I'll be discussing this set in more detail soon. But Oxford Confectionery is 1921. It is classified as an E253. This is the Rogers Hornsby, which is another one I sent in for grading. There's your checklist. Not a huge set. Another one I picked up for a couple reasons. This might look like an E121 because they do look like that, but it is a W501. You can always tell that by the G4-22. Love the Hornsby because it lists him as an outfielder. There's only a few issues that list him as an outfielder, so really tough set and very cool that it has that anomaly. Notice I like things that are printed or unique about things. Something that makes a card stand out. All right, into PSAs. Taking it off, we're back to old. 1887, the Old Judge N172. Gypsy Queen, Cap Anson. One that just has the mine's experienced some serious love, but those colors, that image, that mustache is cool. Speaking of Cap Anson, you know what's better than one Cap Anson? Two Cap Ansons. One of the all-time greatest players, maybe the greatest of his era, and equally bad person. But if you're going to tell the story of baseball, you have to include Cap Anson, for better or worse. he's there. E90-1. So Ty Cobb is a recurring theme. Absolutely love my Ty Cobb stuff. E91. I tried to do the E's when I put them in my boxes somewhat numerically, so it's not by year, it's more so by like set issue. So I can think of, I don't memorize the years by any means, but I know if I have an E90 and an E91, I know my 91 should be sitting behind the 90. So there's the Christy Mathewson. This one's kind of extra crispy and clean with a nice grade, but I like that it lists him as Christopher. It's another kind of unique rarity for a set that gives you somewhat generic images. It's kind of fun to get something extra cool about the card, as tends to happen. You mentioned Christy Mathewson, and there he is yet again. A lot of these you'll find are misspelled with last names too. Glorious image. Perfectly placed pinhole in the sky. Misspelled last name. All things I love. Oh, and on that one, the mark is a stamp on the back. Makes it cool too. E95. Somehow found one that was like perfect condition, and then someone tore some paper off it. But the color on the Ty Cobb is fantastic. So that's an E95 Cobb. Keeping E's even crispier, but without any damage. E98 of Mordecai Brown. Probably one of the few folks to have Mordecai Brown 3 times in their top 100. Next, E106. Fantastic set. Looks a whole lot like E92s, E90s, somewhere in that realm. These have similar shared issues. E106 tends to be a little bit shinier, a little glossier, and it's issued a little bit later, so you kind of get a, recency, a modern discount on it, but still 1915. So that Tris speaker is just glorious with the colors. I always say I usually love my A's and 1s, but a few of these, when they have the colors, if the damage is not in the right way, it kind of ruins the excitement of the card. So I wanted to get a little nicer speaker. This one is a 1, and Ty Cobb is a big one, but this one is kind of perfectly imperfect. So absolutely love this thing. Again, the colors are just wonderful. E106. All right, another one, kind of crispy. Color choice. Look at that fair. Cy Young. I mean, the green background. I've chosen this one to share on a few different videos because the green in this one is just so super vibrant. So, one of the nicer ones for him. Another good color one. T206. I did share in a video, I have the full Ty Cobb run, and with the value of Ty Cobb stuff, T206 run will always end up in box 1, I'm sure, for me. Back damage for the win. T206, back to that green. You can see it's still a pretty glorious green. Some greasing and things to this one, but it is a Ty Cobb. It is the biggest Ty Cobb of the 4, so just to have an example that still has the crispy colors, to me, is a big, big win. Next, bring Cy Young back. M116. Love this set. It's a fantastic set. Hope I can litter some of the players throughout the other boxes. There's not a whole lot of them that go in box 1. Johnson and Young are definitely 2 of them, but they're big boys. Very happy to have picked this one up. that image. You recognize that from other issues as well. A beautiful caramel card that I do not have of Cy Young shares that same image, I believe. Another cool one. Ranch Ricky. Pinhole for the win. Cracker Jack. I know someone that just picked up one of these. They are wonderful and glorious. That's just to be celebrated. Branch Rickey is one of the most significant humans in baseball. Last year's biggest pickup, that was a trade, 90% trade. Honus Wagner, M101-4. I'm not sure where this thing has gone. I've seen a 3 for sale. One of the bigger cards in my collection for sure, based on what I think it's worth. But the M101-4 in a decent grade makes it a tough one. That is kind of the golf shot of Honus, but get Honus's face like that on a picture. Just fantastic. Next one is kind of a funny one. Normally a Happy Felch wouldn't make it into box 1. He's a non-Hall of Famer. He's a Black Sox player. He was good. Could have had a Hall of Fame career, maybe. He definitely was booted out of baseball at a fairly young age, but he's a good player. But this one is in a tough set. I'm 101-4, and it's in a very high grade. So woke up one morning, saw this thing listed, tried to comp it out pretty quickly, and what I came back with was, holy cow, this thing looks like a great deal. So I just went ahead and ignored their or best offer and just said, let's do this. If the M101-4 has boomed based on yesterday, I would think my M101-5, which I would say I see out there much less frequently. I think a lot of the variations end up being the 4, and the biggest difference is on the front. This one for a George Sisler rookie, they list him as a pitcher, which is just cool. So absolutely enjoy that. It's also blank back. So M101-4s and 5s can have different backs to them, or they can be sporting news back or blank back. So thrilled. That was when I messaged the guy and said, I need this to be mine. We need to make this happen. And fortunately, he worked with me just a little bit, but it still hurt. These as well. I've got 3 of the 4. There's 4 different backgrounds. The only one I'm missing is the while baking. But the Collins McCarthy, 1917. Just missed out on one of these recently. Love a different player, which hurts. Love the set. Back of it is one of the coolest backs in baseball cards. If you're looking for a set, Collins McCarthy. They mentioned baseball's Hall of Fame. It's 1917. Wasn't a thing. So cool. Love that. And if your eyes are playing tricks on you, you have to have an obsession to be a player collector. A 1917 Boston store. Same image. Different back. Next. Here's the variants. Showed you the Hornsby. Here's the Sisler. Hornsby, we said 18-20. This one says 16-20. I believe 18-20 is more accurate. So this is George Sisler rookie-ish, but probably not. We'll just call it a really early issue. There's been a couple of these available. They're pretty big. The set, like I said, is kind of boomed. I think my example of this, you saw the Hornsby. I think the Sisler is a really nice, well cared for example. This one, I can't even look at this without thinking about Doug. Herpelsheimer's. If you're not informed on that set, it is extremely, extremely rare. At one point, there was thought to be between 0 and 1, and then they kind of have some discoveries. I'm always a little cautious of things with discoveries popping up, because you just don't know if they have a basement find. You thought you had one of two, and now you have one of four. What does that do to your perceived rarity, scarcity, all that good stuff? So diving in, I think I got a pretty wonderful deal, but that's how you know it's a Herpelsheimer's. And in this grade, I did very, very well. I only have 2 Herpelsheimer's in my collection, which to say only in 2 is still a privilege. Let's get back to Oxford. Again, kind of weird how that happens. Ty Cobb revisits the list. I showed you the Hornsby. Here's the Cobb. And absolutely just fantastic images. They're images you just don't see in other sets. Uniquely captured. So Ty Cobb, you guys know I like to do some zooming, but you feel like you're sitting down to lunch with Ty Cobb at that point. He's just almost smiling, but I don't know if he does. Ty Cobb, not the most smiley of guys. See what I mean? He just kind of looks like he wants to hit line drives. He doesn't necessarily want to have lunch with you. So W575-2. -2s are always known because they've got the little shoulder autographs, shoulder signatures. These images are insane. That grip. You show Ty Cobb with that grip, and I'm in. Fantastic. All right, only 2 more. You're almost done. W575-2. Again, I like to pair them when I can. I will take my Rogers Hornsby. List him as a second baseman. Got that shoulder signature. Is it his? No, because it says Roger. I love stuff like that. W575-2. Fantastic. Blank back set. Last one. Cutting this thing off at 1922, and I have a 1922 to end it. Plan to do a video on these too. Not E121, although that's worthy. What I enjoy is they list him as a manager. That's cool. He was a manager. He was a player manager. So absolutely just love seeing things like that. 1922 E121s. There's 3 in that set of Ty Cobb. So there's like a throwing, we call it throwing left, and this is just throwing, and then there's also one where he's holding a bat. So super cool. That is where I end. That is the end of my journey with you. So next video will be the other 50, 1923 to current. So appreciate you all that stuck with me and watched this whole thing, and I will see you on part B. See y'all. Take care.